So yeah, why on earth are we talking about homestead farming systems in Bangladesh and having somebody from WorldFish Centre presenting to us when we're IRRI? So we go up a couple of slides to a thing called the Challenge Program on Water and Food. Who's heard of the Challenge Program on Water and Food? Apart from Andy. Okay, so it's a big CGIAR cross-centre program that was invented around 2004-05. It's now been superseded by CRPs. So this is nearly the end of the Challenge Program on Water and Food. And I'll have to say where we've got to in the Ganges bit of the Challenge Program is, like, I think a model for how we should do other things, because we've got highly multidisciplinary project focused on a particular issue or region and bringing in many skills, many organisations. And Andy and I are giving a joint seminar in the first week of August, I think. Andy leads one project in that. So that's a free advertisement for us. Okay, so it's about the coastal zone of the Ganges Delta, so primarily focused in Bangladesh and a little bit in West Bengal in India. And you can see it's both agricultural and aquaculture systems, but it's also about homestead farming systems. Why isn't the right thing? Okay, so the CPWF Ganges Basin Development Challenge, they call it, has 5 projects. The one I lead is about different technologies for cropping systems and for agriculture and homestead systems. And Andy leads the one which is about developing this wonderful GIS system for the coastal zone and being able to identify which technologies would be most appropriate in which regions under current conditions and under future conditions as a result of climate change or population increase or reduced flows of water down the rivers from India. Then there's another project led by IRRI, which is about water governance and water management in the polders, which Kabir will explain about polders. And then there's a project led by the Bangladesh Institute of Water Modelling. They do amazing modelling of the coastal zone, because the rivers in the coastal zone are tidal and the water levels go up and down and the salinity comes in the dry season. And that's all being affected by sea level rise, among other things. And finally, WorldFish Centre leads an overall coordinating project. So this is G2, my project. We have many partners. WorldFish is one of our main partners, many Bangladesh Institute partners also. And so we're about rice variety improvement, intensification of rice-based cropping systems, which also include non-rice crops in the system. There's a photo of a wheat crop there. We're about year-round aquaculture in the more salt-affected parts of the coastal zone, and rice brackish water aquaculture systems, so you grow rice during the rainy season and then you grow brackish water shrimp and other fish during the dry season. And we're about homestead farming systems, which is what that picture in the middle of the pond and the veggie garden is alluding to. So I'd like to introduce Kazi Kabir. Kabir is working for WorldFish Centre and he's one of the hardest working people in our project. He oversees all of the aquaculture work and in addition the homestead farming systems, which had a huge survey, and now they've got some action research which they've just started up. So today Kabir is going to tell you about all of that. Thanks, Kabir.
Thanks, Liz. This is a great opportunity for me to share our works with some people who are not homestead concerned, who are basically from a different discipline. So today I'm going to discuss, all of you know about this, the homestead farming system in Bangladesh and how important this farming system is for the very poor people in Bangladesh. So you can see here, it's the poverty map of Bangladesh, and the darker color is the more poor areas. So we have a cluster of poverty stricken areas in Bangladesh, and among them the coastal region is the largest cluster, having the maximum vulnerability of climate change and many other external drivers. So this is one of the world's basically food insecure and poor area where this Ganges Basin Development Challenge project is working. If we look deep details into that area, these are the very crisscross river system, tidal river system. These were used to supply and feed water in that area for agriculture or aquaculture. But flooding, tidal flash flooding was a big problem for this reason. As a result, during 60s, older system was developed to prevent the areas from flooding and to improve agricultural production. You can see it's the river, and around the river these are the boulders. So it's one boulder covering area from a small river basin, and then how it looks like, it's like this. But you can see opposite to the boulder, the water depth in the river, the water during high tide, it's even higher than the boulder height. So it's the current situation, and this boulder is no more actually fulfilling the purpose why it was built. I mean, water comes in, and this is because of poor maintenance. You can see the gate is closed, but still water is coming up. Many of you have heard Sidor, Aila, the big cyclones which affected Bangladesh in the southern coastal zone. So the boulders are like this, broken in many places, even breaks in the small depression in the bay, and then affects the area. You can see the siltation in the inside the boulder areas. So drainage and other things has become difficult. Well, the boulder assessment by different organizations and the situational appraisal shows that salinity intrusion is the biggest problem for agricultural productivity for the boulder zones. Siltation in the river bank is another issue because it is also hampering the drainage system. You know, when we go for improved agriculture or aquaculture, we need better drainage. So siltation, increased water logging because of siltation in the river bed. When it rains, when it heavy rains, the water cannot drain out from the existing river system. It becomes flooding, and followed by seasonal food insecurity. So how is the general land use pattern in the coastal areas? While salinity is less, it's rice. You can see big rice field. Where the areas are relatively low lying, it's rice and fish together. Where the areas are too saline and more low lying, it's year round aquaculture. Like you can see big hairs, it's hundreds of hectares, big shrimp farms. And in some cases where drainage is good, they can go for multiple or integrated system like rice, fish, crab together in the same plot. But as we are discussing about flooding, you can see the impact. It's the G2 project experimental area. We have put a lot of effort, but even then, you can see after 3 days heavy rain, all the areas were flooded. So how the farmers can protect their crop if we with a lot of effort cannot preserve the crops in the field? You see that salinity is increasing in the mainland, salinity flow gradually, and especially during the dry season when water availability from the upstream river is less, no rainfall, so salinity increases. And it is also affecting the cropping pattern, the areas So why we are looking for homestead farming system? Homestead areas are basically in the highline areas among the polder zones along with the roads. Basically people prefer to stay in the safe area, so homestead is relatively improved area than the fields. Better access to supply chain because it is either near to small market or close to the roads, so they can easily get seed and feed and fertilizer for growing crops. Another very important issue is it's a way of empowering women. It increases women to their access to homestead resources. And in our survey, we found that homestead products are mostly consumed than it is sold in the market. Like from the field crops are sold in the market. But if we can improve the homestead system, we can increase the consumption. As a result, the nutrition level can be improved. If they go for high value crops like fish, chicken, cattle, it is better if it is inside the homestead because less risk of poaching. And for the crops like vegetable and then agroforestry, they can use fresh water from the pond because most of the homestead ponds are freshwater. There is also a scope of reusing and recycling homestead materials like a lot of kitchen waste and food waste they can use for fish, they can use for poultry, they can make compost. So you can have a look at this, how homestead system is recycling and reusing materials. It's the water hyacinth used for vegetable growth. That is the compost using for plant-led production. It's the vermicompost plant, and that is livestock and fish together. It is the natural scene because the cows are getting water from the pond, so it is easy to carry water from the pond. Again, the cow dung is used as fertilizer for increasing productivity from the pond. So these are the integration and reusing systems. We had a survey to understand the farming system, and the areas were based on salinity gradient. We wanted to see how much impact is in the homestead farming because of the salinity. So the polder 3, it's the high saline zone. Polder 30 is the medium saline zone, and polder 43/2 is low or no saline zone. Well, there might be a question that polder 43 is in the more southern than polder 3 or 30, but that is less saline because it receives huge upstream flow from Ganges river, Ganges and Meghna joint river. That's why salinity in that region is relatively less. The survey objectives were to characterize homestead farming, to understand current use of resources and productivity, and also to look for the opportunities where we can improve the system, intensify the production. So these are some of the components of homestead farming. You can see here the poultry, vegetable, then livestock, aquaculture, and the fruit tree in front of the house. The method we followed for the survey, it's we collected the household list from the Union Parishad, and then we subdivided polder 3 as it is a very big polder into low-lying and highland areas. So altogether 4 strata. Random number was generated by SPS using SPSS software, and we surveyed at 5% interval. Altogether, we surveyed 1280 household in the working area. Some of the key findings is you can see the land holding by different holders, and it's 50% of the people are functionally landless. This functionally landless category is defined by Bangladesh government household income and expenditure survey. Basically, it means you can see less than 0.2 hectare area, so they have almost no land. It's including their field land and their homestead land. Um, and if we look about the small and marginal category, so altogether these three accounts for more than 90% of the population, and they have only less than 1 hectare land. If we look about the land area distribution, you can see that on an average 80% is field land and 20% is the homestead area. But if we look for the functionally landless poor, means the extreme poor people, 70% is homestead area and 30% is the field land. That means they almost have no field land for producing crop for either for agriculture or for aquaculture. So they are mostly based on homestead farm. If we look through the household income, off farm is the major income for the poor people because they don't have much land to go for agricultural production. But if you look through the farm income, you can see that the functionally landless people is getting more income from the homestead than the field, nearly double almost. And if we look through the national poverty status, the national poverty status is almost 40% people is below poverty line, but in the surveyed area you see it's nearly 80%, and if we look only for the functional landless people, it is nearly 90%. So people are really poverty stricken in that area. That was also shown earlier in the map, how components of homestead farming works and integrated. It's a diagram based on our survey. So you can see it's almost all components, aquaculture, the livestock farming, the vegetable production, poultry and food is integrated with each other. If we look through the contribution of homestead farming to the total income, you can see that farm income is almost same, 50% is the farm income and 50% is from the homestead. For the poor people, it's much higher. But if we look through the consumption, you see that all the homestead products is positively related with consumption. If the production can be increased from homestead, it can improve consumption and nutrition level of the people in that area. And this production for aquaculture, you see its strongest correlation is with aquaculture because maybe they are poor and they don't have much money to buy from the market, so they easily consume what they can grow from their ponds. And if we look through the benefit cost ratio of different homestead farming, considering the household labor, only aquaculture and aquaculture is the profitable, but if we exclude the homestead labor, I mean homestead people are doing frequently with the homestead farming work, they just while going out for work, before going work or after returning from the work, they frequently work in the homestead farm. In that case, all components are profitable in the homestead system. This is the present farming practice. Again, I am showing the livestock, the vegetable production, the aquaculture, so in the homestead. But you see, we have still lot of opportunity to work. Lot of derelict ponds, much areas around the homestead is still fallow. So we have a scope of more intensification in the homestead area. If we look through the homestead land distribution, we can see that pond has a bigger impact on homestead land because even in the southern area, fresh water is not available, so everyone wants to make a pond in their within their homestead. But many people, around 50% people from the functional landless, they don't have pond. However, they access pond of their neighboring households for their regular activities. As pond has a bigger impact within the homestead, and also it is very strongly related with consumption. So for this year, we wanted to focus more on increasing production from the aquaculture, and we in the surveyed area we found, you can see, a lot of ponds has almost no production or very few production. This this line shows the average production from the surveyed area, and this is the national average. So it's around 3,000 kg per hectare, and it's improved production. So most of the ponds are below even the average production of the working area, and almost all are below the national level. So here we have a lot of scope to improve, but you can also see some ponds are producing even higher than the improved production. That is because there are different types of ponds. You can see, so it's a good pond in the freshwater zone. They have intensified production in the pond. They are growing vegetables, also growing fish. But you can see the pond next to that, very few water. Next one is also almost same. Here water is enough, but lot of shading around the pond. So within the shade, very low fish production. You can see women, that is a seasonal pond, almost no water, and then the last one, no water at all. So we have categorized seasonal and perennial ponds, and among them shaded and non-shaded ponds. So we are focusing on the seasonal shaded pond this year for our work, because these are the very much low yielding ponds within the homestead system. Our purpose is to develop a participatory action research around the homestead shaded ponds or challenged pond, because people are using water from these ponds for their household activities, for irrigating their vegetable production, etc. So if you want to go for only aquaculture, this might hamper other works. So what we want is, we want to increase production from the pond without interfering with other use options. And so the key research question is the same thing, increasing productivity without hampering the other issues, and we are basically thinking about suitable species composition and the feeding strategy, so that the water quality of the pond do not become worse than current situation. And the second question is how this activity, as this is a women-led participatory action research, and women have very good access within their homestead, so how this can improve them in controlling the homestead resources, and how this can help them to empower in decision making, in accessing their resources, etc. So for doing this work, the CPWF project has extended its partnership with some other WorldFish projects, CISA, Feed the Future Aquaculture, and then CGIR AS and CCAPS program is working under the umbrella of G2 for this participatory action research. So you can see most of the areas are colder area, except Joshua is a little bit away from the southern area. How we are working for this participatory action research. One research team and an implementation monitoring team has been formed to conduct the research. So the research team is, and you can see these are the village women groups, 12 women. We have selected from each village 4 women in each group. So this cluster is working there, and then they are sharing with other people what they are doing. We are continuing our consultation process with the women to know their preference, to identify how they want to use their pond and this resource, and how they like to continue throughout the income, what they want to feed their children, what they want to do for increase in income, and what they prefer to consume throughout the year. So you can see that research team identified some options. So these are some of the options we considered, and then with these options, the plan was to go into the community, discuss with them, and then see what becomes the outcome. These are the community consultation guideline. In addition to this guideline, we also conducted another survey with the selected farmers. We are working in 8 different locations with around 100 farmers to know their specific preference, available resources, what they can use for intensifying this production. So that was the survey, and the community consultation was resource mapping, homestead resource mapping, then identifying major farming components where they want to integrate more for intensification of the production, and then identifying their preference for aquaculture that I was talking about, that we consider these things, and then possible way of increasing integration among homestead components. We also look for year-round water use from the homestead pond, because these are the seasonal ponds. So during the wet season there is a lot of water, and during the dry season there is no water. So we try to identify the preference of water use from the pond. We also look through the women empowerment issues, which scale they can participate. I mean, there are some activities they may not like to involve directly, and how this production can be contributed to improve their nutrition level, how we can link them with the market system so that these products get higher value, and how they can ultimately contribute this process of research for technology development, participatory technology development. So you can see the resource mapping by the women, the homestead resource mapping. The arrow shows integration from one component to another. I'm not sure whether you can see that. It's a little bit hazy. I had to reduce the resolution of the pictures so that it is possible to send email and stuff. You can see water use. It's the bar shows water level if a woman is standing in the pond, in their pond. So the bars, these bars are showing that water is still this level, then it's above their head. And then
Sorry for the woman who has to measure one.
And then based on this, they have written what they do in different seasons. You can see it's the different water use. You cannot read Bangla, but it's their native language, so they have just written it in Bangla. And then in different places, they were interested for aquaculture, increased production from the ponds for the short duration. I mean, these are seasonal ponds, as I told earlier. So they are very much interested. You can see how they are showing their preference for different species. So we used a participatory voting system. Each women had 10 vote to put which fish they prefer more. They put more vote to that fish. We also worked on feeding technology which they want, which they feel they can afford and they can continue even after the project support, and also which they feel that this is not going to hamper the water quality of the pond. We also shared with them what activity they can get involved. Most of the women prefer for fish feeding and monitoring. This is easier for them, but some of the women were interested in harvesting, selling it in the neighbors, not in the market, and then buying fish from the fry hawkers in the homestead. Actually, they are not much interested in going directly to the market. Rather, they want a comfortable network which can work from their homestead to the market. So there are a lot of fry hawkers who sell fish. They are interested in buying fish from the fry hawkers, And for the fresh fish, there are customers nearby households, so they can also agree to sell this fish to them, but otherwise they are not interested in going to the market. And then this is the rest of the year's work plan we developed in consultation with the community, and also based on this our strength and capacity. So at the end of the year we are going to see what happens to this participatory action research. We are now here. The pond preparation is going on. All the other activities I have deleted to fit it in the slide. And then we have planned for group meeting, what challenges they are facing and how they want to overcome, whether they want to modify. So this group meeting is in 15 days interval. I have not kept the design, fish treatment design, because it's not similar to you people, but you can see that they can have regular harvesting throughout the 4 months, and also specific harvesting. We added some high value fish which can be used for increased income for them. And at the end of the work we have kept a learning sharing workshop within the community, so that this research and the output can be taken by the farmers. The farmer can feel that this is their own work, and this can spread more in the areas, because the shading you have shown, you have seen the slide that a lot of ponds are with very low yield. Yeah, so a lot of ponds there. We are only, and this is only the survey area, and now we have extended our work from 3 polder to 8 working areas. So 5 new areas has been added. So we believe that this is going to increase production from the shaded ponds, from the challenged ponds where water is not available, where seasonality is there, and the water is used for many other purposes, including irrigation and homestead use. Thank you all.
Thanks, Kabir, for your very nice presentation. We have some questions. Lilia?
Where do they grow the rice?
It's
They
in,
must have rice
it's in the field.
in the field.
Yeah.
And who takes care of growing rice?
Sorry?
Who takes care of growing rice?
It's the male, usually the male, but you have seen that this system is basically focused on the poor, and most of them do not have the land to grow rice.
So they have to buy their rice.
They have to buy their rice from the market.
So they have to sell the fish.
Basically the poor people is based on day laborer and other works which is off farm work, because they don't have land. They neither can grow rice nor they can grow fish, and that's why we have taken the initiative that whether they can use this homestead pond for increasing fish productivity, and so that they can sell the fish and can get rice, and also can consume the fish, rice and some other things if they need. So to increase the homestead income for the poor, for the very poor.
So it's 50% of the rural households have less than 0.2 hectares, and of that, how much was homestead and how much was
Almost 70% is homestead.
almost, yeah, so 30% of 0.2 hectares is their fields, which is tiny, and it's an enormous number of people, because
Yeah.
the population of the coastal zone is about 38 million.
Yeah, around 40 million.
So it's really huge.
Please.
It's
Jason, then Sabir.
nice presentation. Thanks. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. I'm just curious on the slide where you're talking about the women selecting their preference of the fish, you know?
Yeah.
Especially for the shaded production.
Yeah.
There's particular species that are better suited for that. So
Yeah.
how do you weigh the women's preference with suitability of species for
Yeah.
shaded areas?
Yeah. I mean, say for
Yeah.
you can see here. Uh, it's a fish and it's output from one side. So it's a shading tolerant fish, but it's not that much popular by the community. But this one is also shaded. It's a air breathing fish, and it's much popular in the community. So what we have done is, while designing the treatment, we kept option like for regular consumption, for high value fish, for stress tolerance fish, and from farmers preference. So we selected fish under this 4 category. So say for when we are thinking about the stress tolerance, we find these and these and these are suitable. Farmer are preferring this one, so we put this one.
Yes.
I wonder how many percentage or what proportion of functionally landless people have their own ponds?
It's around 50%.
And the rest who don't have ponds, what they then need to labor?
Yeah. You can see the income. It is you see it's off farm income. So this is the income for the poor basically. And this off farm income, I mean, most of them are day laborer, but there are people who are doing job service in other places. Some are shifted to many other countries as skilled labor and etc. So these are the things. So mostly off farm income is their major contributing sector.
If you don't have land, how can you have income from it?
Yeah, that's why if they don't have field land, they cannot have income from the field. That's why we are focusing on homestead, because they have some land in the homestead.
But here you have a category functionally landless, but they have some income from field. So how does that happen?
Yeah, they have some land, and you know it's the average. So maybe some functionally landless people have a little more land in the field, and some do not have field land at all.
So even that
And
little bit.
one more thing is that this is based on their own land, but some people take rent of land from the other people, and then in that case they get some production from the field. So this land holding is their own land.
Yeah, and you mentioned that a number of ponds don't put water throughout the year, seasonal ponds.
Yeah.
I guess probably during summer most of the ponds
Yeah.
dry up. Is this because of some engineering problems, like not well constructed and some problems with leakage? Or you mentioned about multiple use, or the water here are mostly used for other uses. Or what were the reasons? Is it deep or shallow?
It is no, it is not actually for shallow, but it is the pattern of the region, that water holding capacity, and also
The leakage.
yeah, maybe the leakage. And the other thing is, you know, the during the dry season most of the riverine network that are not functioning now, so water cannot come in the seasonal ponds. Yeah, this is another problem. And yes.
I think you've got the data to answer my question, but I didn't see it in the presentation.
Yeah, please.
Could you estimate how many, you've chosen this particular type of pond for this study.
Yeah.
Could you estimate how many of these ponds there are?
Seasonal and how many? Yeah.
How many there are in the region?
Yeah.
And you had that graph showing the different production across 750 of these ponds, and most of them will be low.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the typical production for this type of pond, and what are you aiming for? How many? Yeah, what's the kind of increase, and across how many different ponds would be possible?
The typical production is here. You know, the average is here. It's the average 1.2 ton per hectare. It's average production.
Yes, but for the type of ponds that you're focusing
Oh, for that, specific to that, we need to filter that.
on. Yes. So that's what I'm interested in, is how much
But,
do they produce now and how many
yeah.
ponds are there that fit into that? So what would be the kind of potential
Yeah.
total gain across the whole region if this intervention were to work and be implemented?
Yeah, that we can do. But in the baseline survey for specific for this research, we have conducted another survey. There we have got the production specific to this type of pond, how much production they are getting. Though the sample size is not big like this one, 100 farmer we are working with now. Around 100, it's 96 one. But I can send you the output by email.
I assume that the sizes of the ponds that you surveyed differ from one side to another. Did you try to come up with an estimate on the water to homestead ratio and whether what's the best water or pond water to pond area to homestead ratio that will give you the highest benefit of using these farm ponds?
Yeah, thanks. Good suggestion. We have not done this, but we have data. We can make it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the pond area, the water availability, and the homestead area, so we can do that.
And because by that you can already apply the farmers
Yeah.
what size of pond you have to construct to get the
Yeah.
maximum.
So, one of the things you mentioned was about how to improve aquaculture in the ponds, but without adverse effects on other
Yeah.
things, like you might get eutrophication if you put too much feed in or
Yeah.
something. So, would you like to explain what are you doing to try and have a win-win?
Well, so in the treatment, what we have kept is we are adding some, increasing input of natural production, attracting insect and others. We have plan of putting a light, and so that a lot of insects come at night, and also eaten up by the night. So in the morning it's still clean, and we are also planning for increasing productivity from the pond bottom soil, something like tubifex, adding tubifex in the bottom.
What would you fix?
It's an insect, grow very well where the organic matter is high. I mean, in the pond bottom, in the shaded pond, they have a lot of organic matter in the bottom soil. So this can be a very good food for especially for the shade tolerance feed, like the sheen koi. This fish can feed well on that. And we are also planning to use kitchen waste. We are planning to use a bar so that if they are going to use some floating feed, it do not spread all over the pond. So it is still in the ring, so it is not hampering other areas. And also time of application of the feed, so that the time when they are going to apply feed is after the usual time when they use the pond water for homestead works and etc. So that they are done with their activity, and then they use the feed, and before the next activity the feed is consumed by the fish. And also we are planning to apply feed less in relation to the requirements, so that ultimately excess feed is not going to hamper the water quality.
So for this, we still pilot phase, or yeah?
It's just we are still in the research designing phase basically.
So are you providing the fish at this stage?
Yeah, for this research work we are providing fish.
What we reckon that the mean constraint, most of the values are near zero. I mean,
Yeah.
So what is the mean constraint there?
Basically, average size of this pond is 3 decimal, That means it's 100 square meter or something like this, so they are not interested. The most important thing is they do not think that they can grow something from this such tiny pond. This is one thing. And the second thing is they put trees because they get return from the trees, so these ponds are very much shaded and normal fish do not grow well in these ponds. And the third constraint is seasonality of the water. Most of the people, they like the carp. They put the carp in the early wet season, but at the end of 4 or 5 months they get very small fish, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year try, and then they lost their interest. That's the main thing.
Okay, then you can have the second last one, and then Dr. Castillo is going to have the last, as is her right.
Yeah, yes. You mentioned about the multiple use of pond water. I'm quite interested with that one. Basically, because in some other countries, indeed, pond water is being used for many purposes, and cut across from the fish to even for recreation, for swimming, for kids. Now, in your future plan, do you intend to more or less monitor the water level in the pond? Because that is very important information to once you enter into water use, I mean, you have to make sure that you will leave enough water for the fish before other water can be put in for other purposes. So you need to understand how the water is move, or fluctuates within the pond throughout the year.
Yeah, I can say that it's the monitoring and record keeping for the year.
So that's the one.
There is a specific protocol which thing we are going to monitor, but this is one of them.
Is it easy to sell the fish? Because harvesting for sale is very little compared to harvesting for regular consumption.
It's basically not little. I told that we have considered 4 different factors while designing this research in the stocking protocol. So we are putting brood tilapia so that they can start harvesting earlier, and this gift is going to breed in the pond, so they do not need to stock several times, rather it can generate its own stock within the pond. So that's why it's a regular process, not big amount, but every day they can get 2, 3, 4 fish for their consumption. And this harvesting for sale, this is targeted for the high value fish, so it needs some time to grow and being harvested. But when fish is stocked in a pond, some fish show jumping growth, grow faster. Some grow in a slower rate. So we keep 3 phases. When they harvest something, the biomass in the pond is less, and the probability of growing the remaining fish is faster. That's why we get 3 harvesting for sale. I mean, this is the, maybe they can get some fish for selling at that time, and then because the last 3 months when they got enough time to grow.
Because if they cannot sell the fish, they don't have money to buy rice.
Yeah, but they have also the off-farm income. I mean, they are engaged in other activities as well, so they can buy rice from those activities, like they are day laborers. Some of them are working in the transport sector, van pullers, etc.
Are there nutrition studies? What did you find in terms of whether people were getting? You didn't. In some places, they weren't getting 3 satisfactory meals a day.
Yeah.
Were they? So they don't have enough income off farm.
I have not that data in the slide, but almost they can run with their own production on an average 3 months, and then they need to buy from the market. But nearly 90% people have their meal, 3 times meal a day, so they can buy. But is this satisfactory? Actually, the question was satisfactory, but The response was not based on satisfactory. They have 3 meals per day. That's it.
Okay, all right, you win.
I just suddenly, it reminded me of an interview I did in Bangladesh. I forgot the exact location. And I interviewed this farmer. He did not own lands, but he rented, pieces like close together, and he consolidated and put up a fish pond. And what he said, if I remember correctly, is that it will take at least 3 seasons to recoup the cost, before he would really, to break even. So I just wonder, if you have like small ponds like this, how much would it cost for them to invest on developing the pond so that it will be stable, retain the water, and be
Well,
sustainable.
I mean, 3 season, I'm not sure. Maybe it's 3 cycle or 3 months.
3 months.
It should not be 3 year. And then, well, we have some, not from our project, but many other WorldFish project is working, and some estimation is there that how much is the cost. Even we have a general estimation, but that is for our recommended technology. We are not basically looking through what the farmers cost and etc. But problem in the coastal area is the farming in the dry season, it's shrimp. In the wet season, it's shrimp where it is saline. It's rice and shrimp or fish together where it is not that much saline. Shrimp is a very risky crop. So you actually cannot calculate exactly based on shrimp production, because you calculate based on shrimp production this year or this cycle, the production may not be good in the next cycle. Its disease occurrence is very common, and that's why we in G2 project we have applied one strategy last year, that is adding saline tolerant fish in addition to shrimp system, so that if shrimp is not performing well, they can still get some money in their hand. Still it is in the experimental process. WorldFish has established one hatchery for that fish, but in relation to the demand it is not enough. This year we also tried disease risk we avoid some simple techniques for avoiding disease. It worked, so we are giving a second cycle try. We need to give 2, 3, 4 more cycle to recommend that it is really working, or the first cycle was not by luck. And it's the situation. In addition to this, the G2 project, we are working in partnership with Khulna University recently for identifying some potential saline tolerant fish species, high value fish species. 2 experiment is going on in the laboratory phase, so that we can recommend some fish with shrimp, and we can make an optimal investment and return plan, which is more or less less risky.
Okay, I think we'll call it quits there. When Kabir was talking to me yesterday, he said, why on earth am I giving this seminar? IRRI, the rice people. Well, you've just had about 25 minutes of questions and discussion, Kabir, so I don't think it was a problem. So thanks very much for everybody for coming. Thank you, Kabir. Very good.